Are you new to boating or thinking about buying your first boat? Awesome! Boating is an excellent activity and a great way to bring family and friends together. But before you hit the water, let me save you from some costly and perhaps embarrassing mistakes that I made when I first started boating. I'm Jerry Mona from Boater Input. I've owned multiple boats over the years and have been involved in the boating industry for over 3 decades. I've learned a number of lessons during that time, many the hard way. Today, I'll share some of my experiences to help you avoid making the same mistakes. And if you've been boating for a while, I'd like to hear about your biggest mistakes too, so that we can help our fellow boaters. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I put out a new video each week to help improve your boating experience, and so you don't want to miss that. Now, my first boat was a 17.5-foot fishing ski, and it was fine for fishing, but the 110 horsepower Johnson was less than ideal for slalom skiing. I eventually upgraded to a larger engine, but that is not easy to do and is pretty expensive. A few years later, when I got started in the boating industry, I learned that underpowered boats was a common customer complaint. This because manufacturers and dealers sometimes hang a small engine in order to hit an attractive price point. In most cases, I recommend that you get an engine at or near the max horsepower rating for better performance, especially with the full load. And almost no one ever complains about having too big of an engine. Speaking of hitting an attractive price point, my first boat came with an aluminum prop. Now, I didn't think anything about it at the time. I later learned that a stainless steel prop can give me much better performance. So I eventually switched to a stainless steel prop, which did a much better job of pulling me up slalom skiing and is about 5 times more durable. For most people, if you have a 75 horsepower or larger engine, a stainless steel propeller is likely your best option. I'll include a link in the video description on my video on how to choose the proper propeller. After I had owned my boat for a little while, I suddenly realized that my trailer didn't come with a spare tire. It was never offered to me, and I foolishly assumed that all cars and trailers would come with one. But if you get a flat on the way to the lake, you have no choice but to leave your boat on the side of the road. Once I discovered there was no spare, I purchased one separately, which was a bit of a hassle to figure out how to mount it on my trailer. So when you buy a boat, make sure you get a spare from the start. Now, when we lived in Houston, I would sometimes leave home around 3 or 4 in the morning in order to get to the lake by sunrise. And I can recall on a couple of occasions being pushed through an intersection because the light was turning red and I couldn't stop in time. Fortunately, there was no one near me at that time. It could have turned out much worse. In Texas, a trailer is currently not required to have brakes if the gross weight is 4,500 pounds or less. Now, my first boat weighed around 2,000 pounds and my tow vehicle at that time was about 4,000 pounds. So that 50% increase in weight meant that my stopping distance greatly increased. Now, if you're looking at a boat that weighs, say, 1,500 pounds or more, then I highly recommend making sure that you have brakes for safety reasons. Okay, you finally get to the lake and there's a line of people waiting to put in. And when it's your turn, you start jackknifing all over the place as you try to back down the ramp. At this point, you feel the eyes of everyone staring at you, wanting you to hurry up. Sound familiar? We've all been there. While there is no substitute for practice, the 2 tips I would offer you are to 1, try to keep your trailer in view from your driver's side, looking over your shoulder. That way you can watch what you're doing by looking out the window and not just relying on your mirrors. And secondly, put your hand on the lower portion of your steering wheel. If you move your hand to the left, your trailer will go to the left. If you move your hand to the right, your trailer will go to the right. Your seats look great for the first few years, and then they suddenly start to crack and fade. Why? You use the wrong cleaners. When you buy a boat, no one tells you how to properly maintain your upholstery. And if you use regular household cleaners such as Fantastic, 409, Scrubbing Bubbles, you can deplete the UV inhibitors and antimicrobials built into your marine vinyl, making them more susceptible to the elements and rapidly aging your upholstery. Always use a cleaner that is specifically designed for marine use. And it's a good idea to periodically add a protectant to your vinyl as well. I'll leave a link to some videos where I describe what you should and should not use to clean marine vinyl and how to safely treat mildew. There were some years where I didn't use my boat that often, so I decided to skip the end of season maintenance. But if you store your boat for an extended period of time or you live in a cold climate, this could be a big mistake. Any moisture or contaminants in your engine from the combustion process could cause rust or sludge to form, which will negatively impact your engine's performance and longevity. And if you have any water in your gear lube, say you had some fishing line that cut through a seal, this could freeze up, pop your gear case, leading to a very expensive repair. At a minimum, you should change your oil and gear lube at the end of each season if your boat is going to be stored for, say, 3 months or more. When we moved back to Texas in 2017, I kept this boat in an outside storage lot while our home was being built. And when I pulled the cover back in the spring, my once beautiful seats were now covered in mildew. What happened? Well, what I learned is that if you store your boat outside, the temperature under the cover heats up more than the outside air during the day. But then at night, when the temperature cools, condensation forms and becomes a perfect breeding ground for mildew to form. So what should you do? First, make sure your boat is completely dry before you cover it. Second, I like to prop open my hatches and compartments wherever possible for better air circulation. And then third, make sure your cover is properly vented so that the heat doesn't build up inside. Even if you shrink wrap your boat over winter, you can still add some inexpensive vents to help maintain airflow. And then finally, if you live in a humid environment, it is also a good idea to place some moisture absorbers like damper it around your boat to mop up any excess condensation or humidity. So you just got done using your boat for the last time of the season, so you park it in storage, put the cover on, and drive away. Problem is, if you left your motor in the trailering position, your gear case is likely still filled with water. And if you store your boat outside, rain can settle in there as well. Then if you have a hard freeze, that moisture can freeze and expand and pop your gear case. Not good. Always lower your gear case all the way down when you're storing it over winter. Just don't forget to raise it back up again before you trailer it in the spring. I've done that before too. You're hanging out at the sandbar listening to music, or perhaps you've been out fishing all day and running your crafts. Then when you go to turn the key to head home, nothing happens. Your battery is dead. In addition to wearing the battery down with your electronics, heat is very hard on lead-acid batteries. That is why a failed battery is by far the #1 reason for breakdowns on the water. My suggestion is to get a portable jump starter like this. This one costs about $100, and it's a small price to pay for peace of mind, and I never go on the water or on a long road trip without one. I will leave a link in the video description to the portable jump starter that I use. My suggestion is that you get one large enough to handle the size of your boat or vehicle engine, whichever is largest. That way you can keep getting stranded on the road and on the water. Lastly, I want to share one small bonus tip. My first boat came with a boat plug with a long snap handle. A lot of people use these. And then on one cool November day, our boat started taking on water while we were boating on Lake Conroe. And so I beached my boat to keep from sinking. Needless to say, our plans were ruined, and my wife and 2 dachshunds were not too happy. After getting my boat on the trailer, I quickly realized that my drain plug had pulled out. Now, I don't know if it was the force of the water or I happened to catch a stick that flipped the handle open, but either way, I learned my lesson and will only use a T-handle drain plug like this from now on. These screw in tightly, and so they are not as easy to pop out. So just to wrap up here, owning a boat is awesome, but small mistakes can cost you big. Learn from some of my mistakes so that you can perhaps avoid them. And if you are a boat owner, share some of your biggest mistakes in the comment section down below so that others can learn from them as well. Well, if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please click on that like button. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel to get my weekly tips and insights to help improve your boating experience. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the water.